episode of On the Couch with Accor, Asset and Realty. Today we've got the Strata team, we've got David and Justin here to share some commonly asked questions from our owners that we often hear pop up during discussions around body corporate meetings, committee discussions and other Strata queries. So welcome team.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
So David, first question is for you. What is the purpose of a body corporate in a residential building?
Thank you, Josephine. A body corporate is made up of all owners, so all owners are members of the body corporate as owners in common. And it's the responsibility of the body corporate to maintain the common property and common assets. And that's usually performed by the committee. The committee is elected annually at an annual general meeting by owners, and it's their responsibility to maintain the common property and building and other legislative matters.
So Justin, it's now your turn. We often get asked the question around the different roles within the Strata environment. So what is a difference between the role of a building manager in a property and the Strata, or what we know as a body corporate manager?
So one of the key differences between the two roles is the Strata manager will essentially act as a conduit between various stakeholders and the committee. So those can include the individual lot owners, the caretaker, contractors, insurers, all sorts of different people, and they manage the information flow. They maintain a record of all the correspondence both inward and outward, whereas the building manager is more along the lines of reporting directly to the committee, and they can include building managers' reports at committee meetings. They can also include regular email contact just to provide updates on what's going on in the building.
Often we get asked from owners around renovations. How can we renovate our property, our apartment, or our investment property? So what's the process in terms of a body corporate or Strata titled property?
Sure. And again, another very good question and another common one that we get asked. Even though an individual might own their specific lot, there's rules around what can and can't be done within the lot, including renovations. Generally speaking, each body corporate or owners corporation will have rules or bylaws in place, and in most cases there will be specific rules around renovations. They can be quite general sometimes, or they can be quite specific. One that's more and more common these days is the bylaws around or rules around hard flooring and specifications to do with the transference of noise from one unit to another. Essentially, in order to carry out a renovation within your own private residence, you still need to make an application to the body corporate committee. And generally they'll require things like specifications on what's being done from the contractor. They'll want, in the case of laying tiles, for example, or hard flooring within the unit, they'll want confirmation on what soundproofing measures are being implemented. Essentially from there, the committee has up to 6 weeks to respond to the application and provide their decision on whether to approve, deny or request more information on that renovation application. Once approved, some body corporate will then have some, ancillary rules around what's required. Things like booking out elevators and putting safety curtains up in those elevators to protect the assets. Times on when the renovations can occur and when they cannot occur. So they should all generally be spelled out in the bylaws or within some additional rules that may be in place at the property. One important aspect to bear in mind is that with any improvements to common property, if they exceed $3,000, that needs to be approved at a general meeting. So either an annual general meeting or an extraordinary general meeting. Again, you still need to go through that application process, but it's something beyond the committee's powers to be able to make a decision on.
And so, David, another really common question that we often get asked, especially when people are looking at either purchasing property or perhaps just dwelling down into their levies and their invoices, the question arises from owners around, what actually does the body corporate do with my levies?
It does, yeah, thank you. It's a question that is asked a lot. The body corporate levies are used to maintain the common property and the common property assets, similarly to what I was talking about in the previous question. How they get there, that's a function of the committee. The committee determine the budgets annually, and they're put to owners at the annual general meeting. And the budgets have to meet the day-to-day running costs of the body corporate, including repairs, maintenance, utility costs, insurances, things like that. And then usually some capital provision for future expenses. So in Queensland, for example, there are administrative fund budgets and sinking fund budgets. So owners will see an administrative levy and a sinking fund levy. There can also be other levies. There's generally an insurance contribution. There can be exclusive use levies. And there can be special levies if the body corporate has had to raise those for one reason or another. So they're spent on maintaining the common property. The sinking fund's an interesting one. In Queensland, that must be based on a quantity surveyor's report, which is referred to as a sinking fund forecast. That should be at least 10 years into the future. So the body corporate is putting away money each year for those big ticket expenses that come up, so that hopefully there are no surprises for owners when the building needs to be painted and it's going to be $700,000 or $800,000. Well, then the money is there. If it isn't for one reason or another, and we've seen buildings recently spend a lot of money on floods, if the money isn't there, that's when a special levy might be introduced to the body corporate as well. Those budgets are approved by owners at a general meeting, so owners can see the budgets and see where the body corporate cash flow is going and how that money is being allocated.
And thank you so much for being on the couch today. It's been a great insight into the world of Strata and facilities management, so thank you again.
You're welcome, thank you.